We can take America for God by giving the ministry to laymen who are using their gifts to grow their groups to double their classes every 2 years or less. We can do it by doing 5 things, by teaching a halfway decent lesson each and every week. Nothing less will do. You don't have to be Chuck Swindoll to get it done, but it does have to be halfway decent. We can do it by inviting every member and every prospect to every fellowship every month. A party-driven strategy modeled for us by Levi. We can do it by giving Friday nights to Jesus, by encouraging the whole group to be involved in these kind of ministries, and by reproducing our group. We said last week that giving Friday nights to Jesus is an informal time of Diet Coke, coffee cake, and card playing. It could be, it is a metaphor in a sense. It does not have to be Friday night. It could be, for example, pizza on Sunday, and it could be, another example of this is Chinese food on Sunday night. Now, this illustrates another point that I want to get to, and that is some people who do these kind of things like to do kind of big and elaborate parties. They like to do progressive dinners. Have y'all done those? Where you go from house to house to house. You go to the north end of the county somewhere and have salad, south end of town and have bread, east end of town and have main dish, so over here and have vegetables, go someplace else and have a dessert and so on. By the time you're done, it's 10 o'clock at night and you're still hungry. And you've done nothing but run around town all night long and you're still hungry. And some people like this kind of stuff. They like the big and kind of elaborate kind of stuff. I had one guy in one of our groups one time that would do the Great Pumpkin Chase every year, where every year there would be and I'm not sure if this would work in a city this size, but I live in a much smaller town, but there would be a pumpkin hidden somewhere in the county. And somewhere in this county, this pumpkin would be hidden, and you'd go to these people's house, and they would have, we'd have kind of a little fellowship there for a little while, and then the real party began. And he'd worked out a long, full-page poem that would, if you read through the poem carefully, give you a clue that maybe the pumpkin, or not the pumpkin, but there's a hint at some bank somewhere. And you look a little more carefully, and you find, well, here's a hint that tells us that maybe it's at a Wells Fargo bank, or maybe it's at this particular branch of Wells Fargo. And so you go to that branch, and you discover there's a pad of paper there with a bunch of more stack of poems. And these poems will tell you, at some drugstore somewhere, and then so on. And you spend all evening long. I will tell you, there was a little speeding that went on most of these nights. You spend all evening long running all over the county, and by the time you're done, you'll find eventually this pumpkin. And it was kind of a big and elaborate thing, and I think he worked on it all year long, planning out where these hints were going to be, and this whole deal. And some people like that. And truthfully, if you're into that kind of thing, you're into big and elaborate and progressive dinners and so forth, good for you. This whole deal is going to be much easier for you if you're into that kind of thing. But I also kind of want to lend confidence to you. If you're not into the kind of big and elaborate and you're kind of groaning to yourself, I want to tell you that it does not have to be big and elaborate. It can be rather simple, for example. And this group, true story of a group out in California, did a kind of simple approach where they did their expression of Friday nights for Jesus was Chinese food on Sunday night. This is what they did. I had y'all make a list a moment ago of 20 different fellowships. They didn't have a list of 20 fellowships. They had a list of one fellowship. They did the same fellowship every month, and they did it on the same night, and they did it in the same place. This is fairly simple. They just put this whole thing on autopilot and made it very, very simple. They went out to the same Chinese food restaurant like once a month. Like the first Sunday night of the month, they would go out to this Chinese food restaurant. I picked up on this because I happened to be there on a Sunday night. And the pastor asked me after the seminar, he said, would you like to go out with this group and have Chinese food? And I said, sure. And when I got there, it was pretty clear early on that they had a little system worked out where they would all order off the menu. They would take one helping of their entree, set their entree out in the middle of the table, and then they ate kind of family style. And as I sat there, this guy is talking about an RV that he just bought, and this guy is talking about a computer he's thinking about buying or something like this. This was a middle-aged adult group, and this gal is getting out pictures of her grandkids and so on. And I challenged him. I said, you already have the fellowship here. You already have the community. It's crossed my mind from time to time that this would be much more work if we had to create the community. But I'm going to guess in most of your churches, you already have the community. The thing is, you got to just invite people to that. And I said, you already have the community. All you got to do is get systematic and consistent about what you're already doing. And that is, you want to invite every member and every prospect, in this case, to Chinese food once a month. I came back to that same church 6 months later, And in 6 months, they had grown by 33% in Sunday school attendance. They had gone from 300 to 400 in Sunday school attendance in 6 months in the dead of summer. And they had gone from 400 in worship to 550 in worship in 6 months, because they got systematic and consistent about inviting people to things they were already doing. That's what you got to do. You got to translate my details into your details and figure out what would work for you. In their case, it was Chinese food, and it was working pretty well for them. In our case, it was a Friday night. That's how we got in the habit of talking about this Friday Nights for Jesus thing. And we were in the habit of having some friends over on a Friday night. I wish I could tell you that this was some grand spiritual plan that I dreamt up, but really it was just kind of a matter of us stumbling onto having some friends over on a Friday night. Also during this time in my life, I don't know if you know this about ministers of education, but they're sometimes called the minister of everything. And it kind of fell my lot, didn't fall in anybody else's category, so it kind of fell my lot to call every visitor every week. I had picked up on the idea somewhere along the line that all things being equal, the sooner you get to a visitor, the sooner you contact them, the sooner you call them, the more effective that call is going to be. All things being equal, Monday is better than Tuesday, Tuesday is better than Wednesday, and if you wait 3 weeks to call them, it's kind of hard to persuade them that you're really glad they came. So following this line of thinking, I decided to call them on Sunday afternoon. So I'm calling through the stack of visitors cards on Sunday afternoon. Ran across one card that would have been a prospect for one of the classes I was teaching. Now, I was on staff at this church for 11 years. We went from one service and one Sunday school to 4 services and 4 Sunday schools, roughly tripling in size. And I was teaching during several time slots, but during one of those time slots, that group of people was coming over on this Friday night. And this card, I was going through the stack of cards, these people would have been prospects for this class. And so I thought, what if I were to invite them to join me this Friday night? Now, right away, I didn't think this was a very good idea, because this just didn't feel like something you invite people to. You invite people to like a musical, a concert, a pageant, an Easter cantata, or whatever it is. But this was just us hanging out at our house and having cards and playing cards and having Diet Coke and coffee cake and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, I just don't know if this is something you invite people to. Well, I believe you learn by doing. And so I decided to just try it, give it an experiment. So I called them up and I said the same things to them that I'd said to everybody else. I want to thank you for visiting. How'd you hear about our church? What kind of churches have you attended in the past? What kind of work are you in? Blah, blah, blah. Talk to them about the picky, boring details of their life. And then I said these magic words. I said, a bunch of us are going to have some friends over this Friday night. This is not some big program or event. We're just going to have some friends over on a Friday night. We're going to hang out and have Diet Coke and coffee cake and table games and so on. And we were wondering if you'd like to join us. To my surprise and delight, he says, yeah, that sounds fun. What time? Where? Can we bring something? I'm feeling key lime pie. You want to bring something? That would be just great. Actually, I won't say that about key lime pie, but I will always allow them to bring something if they want to bring it. From my viewpoint, the more goodies, the better. You can tell that I live by that philosophy. But at any rate, they showed up for that Friday night. We did not get out a flip chart to go over 16 reasons to believe in the existence of God. We did not go over a gospel presentation at all. We did not go over common objections to the gospel and answers to each one of these objections. We just hung out for the night and played cards and had Diet Coke and coffee cake. They talked a little bit about the church. It's not like we avoided spiritual conversation altogether. They had a few questions, and we tried to answer those questions, but the whole thing was kind of low-key. But they did pick up on the fact that everybody there attended the same Sunday school class. And the next week, that weekend, they came to that Sunday school class. You know why? There's an epidemic of loneliness in the culture. And if you will love people in common, ordinary, pedestrian ways, like having them in your home, if you will be a friend to them, their heart will begin to warm up to a message of what a friend we can have in Jesus. In many cases, they're kind of, truthfully, easy to manipulate. They're easy to reach in many cases. It doesn't happen every single time. I want to be clear about that. There's not a kind of one-to-one correlation, because if you think that, you're going to get discouraged when you get out there. Sometimes you're going to invite them and they won't come. I remember one time, and by the way, when we have people over, my wife likes to have the house clean. She likes to have the living room clean. She likes to have the kitchen clean. She likes to have the bathroom clean. She likes to have the bedroom clean. She likes to have the bedroom bathroom clean. She likes to have the bedroom bathroom shower clean. She likes the whole place cleaned up. I've explained to her, honey, they're not going to take a shower. But anyway, we like to have the whole house cleaned up. And truthfully, I'm no hero. I don't want to try to overstate the case here. I'm no hero in this kind of thing. But, I will try to do, my responsible, at least fair share, or maybe at least a little bit of the help along those lines. And so, Friday afternoon, I'm vacuuming the floor and making the coffee cake and going to the store and buying the Diet Coke and so on. I don't know if you've noticed this, but all good ideas degenerate into work. And if you haven't done this kind of thing, you have no idea how much trouble it is to have fun. It is quite a bit of trouble, in fact. And so, I say I'm no hero at those kind of things, but I'm trying to help out as best I can. And I had called, and also I typically did most of the calling myself. And so I called on Monday night, and I invited 4 different couples, which I later learned is too many. But at any rate, I was kind of learning as I went. And at any rate, I called 4 different couples, and 4 couples told us on Monday night that they could come. On Thursday night, I called them back, and I said, just wanted to call, just wanted to confirm, wanted to make sure you're going to be able to be here. 4 couples told me they would be there. Friday afternoon, what am I doing? I'm vacuuming the floor, I'm making the coffee cake, I'm running to the store, I'm buying the Diet Coke, I'm running around, I'm getting everything all set up. 7 o'clock rolls around. None of them showed up. 7:15, 7:30, still none of them. I remember I got on the phone and called this guy. His name was Ron. Ron, where are you? Oh, I got off work and I was tired and I didn't feel like coming. Ron, you need to come see my bathroom. I have been cleaning this thing up just for you, Ron, and it'll happen to you. Sometimes you'll invite them over and over and over again. I remember one time inviting this one couple like a dozen times, literally. It's one of the benefits of this plan that if you call people and invite them to class and then you call them again and you call them again, after 2 or 3 times of this, truthfully, if you're not very careful, you will start representing a message that is contrary to the message of the gospel itself. The message of the gospel is all about the fact that there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. But if you're not careful, you'll tend to kind of represent a kind of policeman motif. You'll kind of represent a kind of condemnation message that comes across as, if you're not very careful, you bad person for not coming to my Sunday school class. And so you'll kind of tend to back off. And that's one of the downsides of just inviting them to class. But the truth is, you can invite them to a party pretty much from now till Jesus comes, and it doesn't get all that awkward. Among other things, because you're inviting them to a different event every time. And so in this case, I had invited them to like a dozen different events, and they had not come to anything. So I called them again, said, we're going out to White Sands or whatever it was this weekend, and love to have y'all come, blah, blah, blah. Here's the details. And they took down the information. They're real friendly and seemed to be kind of responsive. But I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm saying, I've asked them to come to, I've had a dozen other conversations like this. And so I'm kind of into, English language sentences as a method of communicating as opposed to subtleties of tone and whatnot. And so I just asked him, I said, I have asked you guys to come to quite a number of things now, and y'all never come to anything. And it occurs to me that I might be being a little bit intrusive here. I might be bothering you a bit. And I just want to be clear. And if you want me to, I'll take you off this list and I'll never call you again. Oh, no, we love to turn you down. And, just keep right on calling. And some of those very people, some people that I called 4, 5, 6, 8 times before they ever responded. I remember talking to this guy one time that he was that way. I had invited him like 6 or 8 different times before he came to anything. He later came to be a fairly good friend of mine. And so I asked him one time, we were talking in Sunday school about the fact that oftentimes you have to contact people over and over. And I turned to this guy and I said, like you, for instance. I said, what took you so long? I bet I invited you to half of different things before you ever came to one. And he said, you know what? Every single month when you would call, I would put down the phone, I would turn to my wife, and I'd say, honey, that was Josh again. And he was inviting me to come to whatever the event. He said, you know what? One of these days we really do need to get involved in that. You see, he understood on some base level that I was not asking him to go bowling. I was asking him to be my friend. When you were in elementary school, that was all very simple. You just passed out a note that said, will you be my friend? Yes, no, maybe. They check it out. But in adult life, we tend to work with a little more sophisticated kind of approaches. But he knew on some level I was asking him to be my friend. And he knew that I was asking him to be a part of the church. Now, he had some church background. He really knew kind of what that was about to some degree. And he wasn't quite ready yet. They say it takes like 18 miles in the open ocean to turn a oil tanker around. And a lot of people are that way too. It takes them a while. And oftentimes we present an approach that's, accept the message right now. No? Okay, well, see ya. And some people are going to take a while. And it's a good thing that we can have a strategy that allows the crop to be cultivated and grow over a long period of time. And one of the benefits of this strategy is it has that characteristic that you can ask people and ask people and ask people. And because if you ask them to Sunday school and they don't come, and Sunday school and they don't come, it's going to get awkward. But if you ask them, we're going to go to Red Lobster this week, we're going to go bowling next time, so on, it's just friendly. It's not awkward. It's just friendly. So at any rate, we're having the habit of having these people over. We invite these people. They came to both church and to Sunday school. They came back the next week and the next week and the next week. A month later, and during that period of time, they heard the message of the gospel. About a month later, they placed their faith in Christ. We had some more people over, and they joined the church. We had some more people over, and they joined the church. We had some more people over, and they joined the church. I'm a little bit cerebral and curious, and decided to after about 6 months, do a little research. And so I went through our database, and I discovered that there had been 43 couples who would have been prospects for this one class, who had visited during this period of time. It was roughly 6 months. It was I didn't really care how long it was just from the time that first couple that I talked about, from the day they visited until that day I decided to do the research. I just went through and counted the number of couples that we had visited that would have been prospects for that class. It could well have come to that class and joined the class and been involved. And I discovered there was 43. Of the 43 that came, we had 33 into our home. No, excuse me, the other way around. We had 10 into our home, 33 we had not had into our home. Of the 33 we did not have into our home, 3 joined the church. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but I've done some research since then that indicates that this is just about the national average. That on average, 87% of the people who visit our churches do not join those churches. You see, we think our problem is we can't get people to come to church. That's not our problem. Our problem is they've been to church. And many times we can't get them to come back. And one of the best ways I know of getting them to come back is to feed them your coffee cake. Get them in your home and play cards with them, and it's really, really effective. Now, of the ones who we didn't have into our home, we did this every 2 or 3 weeks. Once again, people want me to connect all of the dots. Exactly how do I do this? Exactly how many times a month do I have to do this, and so on? I can't connect all the dots. You got to kind of work within your own schedule, and you do it as often as you can. For us, it was every 2 or 3 weeks we would do this kind of thing, just as our schedule would allow. But of the ones we had into our home, 3 out of 30 did not have into our home, 3 out of 33, which is just about the national average. The question is, I've told you a lot of stories, but the question is, does this strategy really bear up under the weight of hard research? How big is the dark blue slice if we can get them to our home and we can feed them our coffee cake? Well, as it turns out, it's huge. No coffee cake, 10%. With coffee cake, 90%. 9 out of 10 join the church if we could get them into our home and feed them our coffee cake. And I know, honey, it drives you crazy when I do this, but I want you to back up. Make sure that we don't miss this. Back up one more time. There it is. You see the dark blue slice? Without coffee cake looks like that. 10%. With coffee cake looks like this. Let's do it one more time, sweetie. Without coffee cake, thank you. There we are. There we are without coffee cake. And with coffee cake one more time looks like that. Same pastor, same sermon, same church, same landscaping, same preschool, same music, same song, same everything. The only difference was the coffee cake. I have had people ask me from time to time, what do you put in that coffee cake? And what you put in that coffee cake is you put in L-O-V-E, love. You love people in common, ordinary, pedestrian ways. If you will be a friend to them, their heart will begin to warm up to a message about what a friend we can have in Jesus. And it is, in many cases, practically an irresistible offer. It will not happen every single time, but it will happen often enough to get you to double your class in 2 years or less. And I did this seminar for several years based on my own experience and told just these stories. But it's been my happy privilege to do this all across North America. I've done 2 different tours of Australia. I'll be going back to Australia next year. And I'm seeing real positive church feedback from churches all over. One guy, for example, out in Florida told me, he said, I'm hitting 100%. Every single solitary person I've had in my home and I've joined my church, and I've fed my coffee cake to, has joined my church. pagans who moved to town from California and Baptists who moved to town from Alabama will join my church if I can get them into my home and I can feed them my coffee cake. Now, this guy's from Florida, and I don't know about you, but I really don't trust the math of people from Florida very well. Can I get an amen on that right there, huh? All right, so, you know, I'm a little suspicious about this guy's 100% number. I'm thinking, you know, there has to be someone somewhere along the line that he might have messed up on. But you know what? He could be off just a bit and still pretty impressive number. And I had a guy in Ohio tell me, lives in Texas now, but lived in Ohio at the time, told me he was hitting 87%. Another guy in Oklahoma told me 9 out of 10. Another guy in California told me 9 out of 10 of the people that we have in our home and we feed our coffee cake will join our church. Same pastor, same sermon, same church, same everything. The only difference was the coffee cake. And the reason is this, as Rick Warren says it, people are not looking for a friendly church. They're looking for friends. They're looking for somebody who will scribble their name on the backside of their phone book. They're looking for somebody who will program their phone number into their phone.